Okay, then we're live now, and we're going to wait a few seconds or a minute or two for people to come in. I'm also going to take a second to quickly share this on our groups.
I should send you a video actually. I got a video, a climbing video. I should send you with me injecting.
That would be
Well,
awesome.
yeah, I can send that to you after. It kind of puts in perspective.
I can see some people coming in, and just going to wait a few more seconds. Super excited to be chatting with you, Jerry, today. Hi, Rohan.
Yeah, climbing and diabetes. It's not. It's not the most obvious choice.
Yeah,
But yeah, to me, the outdoors is a great panacea, whatever you do in it, and I think it really helps heal and soothe and take away stress. I love it. Um, I think more people should do more stuff outdoors. I think it would help a lot more. Get rid of all the stress and the tension, you know.
absolutely. And there's a lot of, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of parents of children with type 1 diabetes tuning in as well. And if that is you, if, from among the audience, tell us where you're tuning in from. Tell us what is your connection with diabetes. Our community has people with all types of diabetes. So that's another thing. Hi, Hemant. All right, I think we're kind of good to go. I see a bunch of people in. So good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Blue Circle Workshops. I'm Nupur, and very excited to be chatting with Jerry today. Jerry wears a lot of hats, and we'll get into that soon. He's a diabetes advocate. He's a public speaker. He's a climber. He's a business owner. He does a lot of incredible things. And today's workshop is called Climbing Beyond Diabetes, because of all of the incredible things that Jerry's been doing. And we're going to ask him those questions and ask him his experiences. Um, in the meanwhile, keep your questions coming. Tell us where you're tuning in from. I'm sure you guys will have questions for Jerry, but for now, I'm going to hand over the mic to Jerry to, introduce himself briefly, and then we'll jump into the questions. Over to you, Jerry.
Thanks very much, Nupur. That's really lovely. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm really open, so if people have got questions, just shout out. I I'm also not great with digital technology, so some of the questions might pop up and I might not see them. So if you see them, Nupur, then just shout out. But yeah, do ask away. I don't know about you guys, but my memory is awful. And so if I have a question, then I have to say it. Otherwise, I'll forget it. um, so yeah, I'm, as Nupur said, I do a lot of different things, but really it all comes down to living a rich, full life. And by rich, I'm not talking monetary rich. I'm talking in terms of experiences and working with other people on our beautiful planet. Um, I'm just a great advocate for living life, and I think too many people, especially with type 1 diabetes, especially carers, they kind of they get frightened by this condition, and it stops them living a full life. And I really want to try and help with that if I can, because there's absolutely no reason why you can't. And I'll always say it, and I've said it many times, the only thing stopping you from doing something is you. That's it. And it's a cliche, but it's so true. Anyway, I'm ready for the questions. How about you?
Yes, I'm ready to. And that what you just said is so powerful, right? The only thing that stops you from doing anything is you. So, I hope that parents that have children with type 1 diabetes, or really anyone else, we know, like Jerry said, a lot of carers, a lot of caregivers take a lot of stress about the well-being of their family member living with diabetes, and often that results in a lot of sometimes some fights or some skirmishes at home. So stay tuned, and we're going to ask Jerry a lot of questions, and hopefully that'll put you at ease as well. So Jerry, the first question I'd like to ask you is, uh, what was your life like before T1? I know you were diagnosed, as an adult, and what's your diagnosis story?
So before diagnosis, I was a stressed dad who was always juggling work, family, and adventure commitments. I was restless, I was stressed, and I was fatigued, and pretty much challenged by everything around me. I was the marketing director of a large UK company. I'd just been made redundant because it was bought by an investment consortium. And I'm probably affected by, probably am the definition of imposter syndrome. So, imposter syndrome is a behavioral health phenomenon centered on self doubt. I didn't think I was very clever. I didn't think I had many skills, and I didn't think I'd done many things, achieved many accomplishments. Um, the bottom line is I'm always think I'm rubbish and I could do a lot better. My school report when I was 12 actually said that. Okay, but could do better. And although I blame no one, I feel that even today I have not achieved much and could do so much more. So I was diagnosed at age 40. I'd been married for 8 years. I had two gorgeous, healthy daughters. I'd been a former officer in an elite military corps, the Royal Marines. I'd opened new extreme mountain routes on 5 continents. And like I said, I was the marketing director of the UK's largest outdoor equipment retailer. Yet, as a result of my redundancy, I felt I needed to retrain. I started an intensive marketing diploma in my spare time, and within 3 days, I got all the T1D symptoms. I don't need to go into those, but the classic ones: drinking a lot, peeing a lot, and all that stuff. And that was really my life before diagnosis and my diagnosis. I was diagnosed 31st of January 2001.
Got it. I see a comment that's come in from Shobit, and he says he loves the name Action for Diabetes. And I think we'll discover why, in the course of this conversation. Jerry does an incredible amount of things, and I really, having to describe who he is and what he does in a few sentences, is a real challenge. But it's amazing, to be talking to you today, Jerry, and super super inspiring, what you've done despite diabetes. So can you share with us how you adapted your lifestyle, once you got detected with T1? How did it affect your mountaineering and other aspects?
Yeah, so right from the beginning, right from when I encountered other people with type 1 diabetes, which I'll talk a bit more later, but um, I was inspired to adapt my condition, my diabetes, to my lifestyle, and not adapt my life to my condition. That's key. That's essential, and everybody should have that just tattooed on their chest or forearm or somewhere, But it's really important. So it's all about accepting that diabetes, that you've got it, to do something about it, but not to change your life. Do what you want to do, follow your dreams, because this condition is all about motivation. You're not motivated if you're not following your dreams. You're just doing something that you've kind of been told to do. So it's really important to adapt your diabetes to your life. So this is what I did. The first thing I was very open about my condition. Now, when I was diagnosed, it took me a few days to kind of go, yeah, okay, not the best news I've had, but okay, I've got it. Just get on with it. I've said it before, said it many a times. Worrying is a wasted emotion. It's better to do something, and that helps the whole fear and worry because you're actually actively involved. You're not sat there contemplating life. So I was open. I told people about it. I went out of my way to tell people, certainly all my family, all my climbing friends, all my business colleagues, everybody. I might have even put it on social media, although I think in 2001 there probably wasn't any social media, but I would have done if there was. And being openness, I think, is a strength, not a weakness. Now, when you're a 9-year-old kid and you say to them, well, I want you to be different and I want you to stand up in front of all your friends and tell them, they go, no way. The last thing I want to do is be different from all the rest, because that's what being a cool kid is. You just want to fit in. But sadly, one of the things you've got to accept is that you are different, but in a very positive way, because you'll actually you'll learn a lot more about being healthy with diabetes than not. So anyway, I was open, and certainly when I climb, if you're not open with your partner on the rock face, it's dangerous, especially on multi-day extreme climbs. So I had to make sure my partners knew all about this condition. The other thing I did a lot was trial and error. So so what does trial and error mean? It means doing stuff and learning by doing. You can read, you can talk, you can listen to podcasts, but ultimately for me, the best way I learn is by doing. So I did a lot of stuff, and I learned a lot about how to manage my condition while I climbed and cycled and ran and did lots of adventurous stuff. My first bad hypo was probably a month into my condition, and I went climbing with a friend of mine, and I didn't test my blood sugars before I started this climb. So you've got to imagine I'm at the base of a vertical wall. It's 30 to 40 meters straight up. It's composed of limestone that's a little bit crumbly, and there's no bolts. You've got to go up and put your own protection in the little cracks and fissures. And if you don't put that protection in and you don't clip your rope to it, when you fall, you'll just fall all the way to the ground. So this is traditional climbing. This is where you have to put stuff in the rock as you climb up. And after about 15 meters, halfway up this route, so I'm already 15 meters above the ground, I felt all the energy draining out of my arms. And I go, God, what's going on? I mean, I've had a good breakfast. This doesn't normally happen. This is an extreme climb, but it's not a really hard extreme climb. I should be fine on this. And I shout down to my partner, oh, watch me, I don't feel great. And, my mate Chris is saying, yeah, okay, I've got you. And then it really came on. And then I started to feel a bit dizzy. And then I thought, I can't hold this rock. And I was starting to sweat a lot. And I was really starting to be frightened because, I'm on a climb where putting in a little piece of metal, which is called a nut, into the rock is pretty good, but it's not 100%. I had to put in one of those bits of metal and then really tug on it and make sure it was seated before I could literally hang on it. I must have spent 20 minutes trying to get a little piece of metal the size of my thumbnail into this rock. And I was absolutely exhausted. I just sank on the rope. The rope went from my partner up to this little wire down to me, about a meter below it. And I was okay, but I was totally and utterly spent. All my energy had gone into this. The guy lowered me to the bottom. I still didn't know what it was, and so I made the classic climbing joke. Oh God, I should have gone on a diet, or I'm too fat, or whatever. And my mate said, yeah, you better lose some weight. Let's go and have a drink. So we went off to the pub and we had a drink. And then it was only on reflection I started to realize what it was. I then tested and realized I had a hypo. I didn't know what a hypo was. And that was kind of my first real trial and error with climbing. And I've done a lot of testing and trialing since then. But, I'm not going to say any of this, any living with diabetes is 100% safe. It's not. But life isn't safe. And that's my attitude to it. Live it and enjoy it and do your best with it, and learn from your mistakes. I definitely learned from that hypo. Every single time since then, I always carry fast acting carbs, 15 grams, like I find Twix is really good, or gels. I always have that with me in my pocket, in my chalk bag, whatever. And I always test before I climb. So, right from day one, I learn. The other thing that I got, and I got this from the Marines really, was that time spent in reconnaissance is seldom wasted. I would go further and say reconnaissance experimentation is essential to live a full life with diabetes and doing the things you really want to do. So, whatever your thing in life is, go out and experiment with it and learn what you need so you can do your thing to accomplish to live your dreams, but with your condition. I'm just going to go on just a little bit and say the last thing that I really did to help me live as a climber was to get confidence. Confidence as a type 1 is essential, right? If we don't have confidence, we can't even go to a restaurant. We can't even get up in the morning. We can't go to school. Confidence is everything. So how do you get confidence with a chronic health condition that you're going to have for the rest of your life? Well, the first thing, and it just seemed obvious to me, was talk to other type 1s. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? And when I spoke to my healthcare professional, I said, I want to meet other people with this condition. They go, oh, well, not sure we can do that. And they might not want to talk to you. And then there's, various procedures. I go, okay, if you're not going to put me in touch with them, I'm going to find them. And I eventually found a group called MAD, Mountains for Active Diabetics.
Wow.
Brilliant organization, international, and basically they're climbers, walkers, skiers, bikers, all with type 1. So they all do the stuff I do. And guess what? They're all full of great little advices about how to manage your condition when you operate outside. But they gave me the confidence because they were doing it in front of me. And when you're in a restaurant, there's 30 people and they're all testing and injecting, it gives you so much kind of inspiration and motivation. I mean, I've got to say, the other people in the restaurant thought we were all drug dealers, we're all, we're all like injecting drugs. But it was just, I always remember that. It was brilliant. So, definitely encourage people to do that. And the other thing that really kind of nailed it for me in terms of diabetes, because I'm an athlete, I do a lot of outdoor stuff, is I did some research into world-class type 1s. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of politicians. There's a lot of film stars. There's a lot of sports people. I don't know if there's people in the audience who've heard of a beautiful woman called Halle Berry. Do you know her?
No.
She's like a famous Hollywood actress. Well, she's type 1, right? I mean, if you're into films and movies and stuff, that's got to resonate, right? She's doing it and she's type 1. The person who really resonated with me was Sir Steve Redgrave. Now, Sir Steve Redgrave has won 5 Olympic golds at consecutive Olympic Games, and he won his 5th gold as a type 1 in Sydney in 2000, and he won that race by 0.38 of a second. And I go, wow. If he can manage his diabetes to that Olympic gold medal precision, I've got no problems, right? I mean, what problems can you have? I mean, he's done it all. And so, I read that and I go, game over. That's it. Let's just move on. What's the problem? Okay, so I think that's probably enough on that question.
Jerry, I've heard you say this before, no excuses. And that came through in what you were saying now as well. A couple of years ago, there was a mom, of a newly diagnosed child. I think he was about 8. and he was into competitive skating, which is really cool. I mean, how I don't know too many people that do that. And then she wanted to pull him out of class because he got diagnosed, and then everyone like sort of told her, hey, that's not how to do it. And I don't know if she's tuned in today. I hope she is, but to all the parents, to all the caregivers of people living with various types of diabetes, especially type 1. I hope you find this useful. When you were telling us about the first hypo experience that you had, I was trying to remember if I recall my first experience. I don't, but we all know what a hypo feels like. And imagine being suspended like 30 meters into the air, nowhere to kind of clasp or grasp, and you're experiencing a hypo, and it's a new experience. And oh my god, that must have been so scary. I mean, I'm seeing a couple of comments in the comment box, and that it sounds scary, and well, you managed so well. And I also see Rohan, who is caught on to all the the pearls of wisdom, and he's put in a few comments for those who may have tuned in a little later. So what Jerry said earlier is that worrying is a wasted emotion, right? Just go out there and do what you have to. And he also said diabetes isn't 100% safe, but then neither is life. Amazing. We know this to be true, and there's no point worrying about it. Just educate yourself, meet other people living with diabetes, and go out there and do it. um, all right, so
I just
here's yeah.
sorry, I just want to pick up on that quickly. People say, "Oh, what are you worried about? Are you worried about dying in the mountains? Are you worried about avalanches? Are you worried about the rope cutting through?" I mean, all those things have happened to me, and it's happened to friends of mine, and I've dealt with them. But you know what? That doesn't worry me. There's only one thing that actually worries me, and that is not living every second of every minute of every day, because that's so important. It's our life, and we have to live it and enjoy it and appreciate it. And
Right.
I think that certainly helps me get through each day. You can spend your day worrying, or you can spend your day doing stuff. And for me, the worrying seems to go. But yeah, that's the only thing I kind of really worry about.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand. And I think maybe it is a little difficult, because caregivers are in that sort of tough space where it's literally, it feels like it's their job to, care slash worry. But then, I know my parents are watching this today as well. And I know when I started running marathons, they were incredibly worried, but I ran anyway. And you were saying earlier, Jerry, that you can support your T1. So my parents have always been my crew, whether it's bringing water or bringing food or helping out with anything. So that's one way to help turn your worry into something actionable that you can actually do. In fact, yesterday in our city here in Pune, we did a little bit of rock climbing on an artificial wall. And I was thinking, what incredible timing, because I'm talking to Jerry tomorrow, and uh, here we are today, doing some rock climbing. But uh,
I also just like to just add something about that, because I talk a lot to caregivers, especially with my charity Action for Diabetes, because we look after thousands of children, and of course all those thousands of children have parents, and I talk to parents a lot, and I understand their fear and their worries, but the way I always point it out to them is they've got a child. Let's say this child is 10 years old.
yeah,
For the next maybe 80 or 90 years, that child has got to stick a needle in itself, test its blood, watch the grams of carbs. That's a long time. That's 80 summers. That's 80 winters. That's millions of injections. That you're only going to do that if you have one thing, and that is motivation. And fear is not a motivation. It is to an extent, and it is especially for older people, but for young people, it's not. So you've got to inspire this child and educate through inspiration, not through fear. And you've got to understand that if this child isn't motivated, they'll stop injecting, they'll stop testing, And then you can get worried, because then the complications are horrendous. I've got a number of friends who basically didn't test, they didn't inject in their teens. By their mid-20s, they were blind because of type 1, because of retinal hemorrhage. So, inspire and look at the positives, and get your kids to look at the positives and have fun with it. Don't make it some horrendous thing like, oh, woe is you, you're a patient, it's terrible. Make it fun as you can, and as enjoyable. And another classic thing about kids learn by having fun. And when they're having fun, then they pick up stuff.
Right.
And I say that to caregivers, because being over caring and frightened about their condition, or the condition of their children, doesn't help them, and it doesn't help their children. And another thing I say is, kids are great at copying, right? We all know that. We all know kids can copy. So give them something good to copy. Give them a good role model. So a parent who's inspired, who's motivating, who's fun, who does stuff with their kids, who does exercise with them, and the kids will copy that, and they'll become good people, and they'll be motivated, and they'll hopefully look after their condition.
Right, right. Absolutely true. I mean, oftentimes, parents say things like, "My kid doesn't listen," or he or she, only wants to eat chips and doesn't want to eat vegetables. But hey, you got to walk the talk, right? You've got to be the person that you want your child to be. There's a question by a mom in the comments, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. Harneet, I see your question there. I want to pick up on what Jerry said about Action for Diabetes, and I want to ask you about that. So, to raise money for young children in Southeast Asia, you co-founded a charity called Action for Diabetes, and Shobit earlier commented in the comment box that it's a really cool name. So, what was the thought behind it? How did it start? What led to that sort of moment when you said, I have to do this?
So it was about 2006. I already been climbing and trying to sort of inspire people in the diabetes world about my climbing, and saying, yeah, look, I can do these extreme things, and I live with type 1. I wrote an article and got a front cover page for the Diabetes Voice, which is International Diabetes Federation magazine. But I wanted to do a lot more, and I hadn't really kind of thought it out. And then in 2006, I was trying to open a new route on each of the 7 continents. And this was my 6th continent. And I was in Africa. I was actually in a country called, or an island called Madagascar. So this is southeast off the southeast coast of Africa, right at the bottom. Huge country, incredible poverty, incredible poverty. I could talk to you so about that expedition, 6-week expedition. Anyway, bottom line is, we opened this new route, 900 meters, vertical face, hardly any handholds. It was very coarse, granular sandstone, where you can literally, your feet are just resting. I'm going to hold up my mouse here, so your feet are resting just on a little smooth edge like this, sticking. The rubber is sticking to the rock, and your handholds are little dimples like that. I don't know if you can see that, but on my mouse, but just like that, just your fingers are just there on this edge, and you're on a vertical wall, and it's almost a kilometer high. We climbed up, we did it. It was amazing, incredible pictures and experiences and emotions, and some big falls, but it was all good. We did it, and then right at the end, I always remember it's a Saturday, and it was our, just resting and recuperating, and our base camp guide saying, "Oh, we'll take you to the local market." Well, that's like 15 kilometers away, and they go, "Okay, well, we'll go in a truck and we'll get there." So we went to this market. Most people had hiked from their villages to get to this market, and I remember going around this market, and there was a woman there. She had a little piece of plastic laid out on the ground. I'm going to go, it's like probably 2 meters by 1.5 meters. And on that piece of plastic was 4 tomatoes, 1 onion, and a cucumber. and she would sell that produce for about $2. And
Oh,
those $2 will feed her family. She had 4 children. Her partner had left her. She was alone. 4 children for the following week. And then the following week, she'd go to that market, she'd sell a few more veg, and she'd get another $2. And that was poverty. And it hit me right in the face. I'd been in many countries before that were very poor, but that really hit me because I suddenly started thinking, what would it be like if one of her 4 children contracted type 1 diabetes? And I
yeah.
suddenly realized type 1 diabetes in an environment like that is a death sentence. You get it, you're going to last about 6 months, you're going to die slowly, painfully, and your body will take everything. So you look like a victim from a concentration camp. Your skin will be sunken. You look incredibly malnourished, and your bones will be thin, and you die, and it will be horrible. And I realized then I had to. I'm I'm emotional even as I say it, but I had to do something. And I started working for charities that distributed insulin to poor areas in the world when there was catastrophes and stuff. And I've started working for a charity called Insulin for Life, based in Australia, and that was really, really good. But then after I started doing a few more challenges, my partner, Charles Toomey, who was based in Southeast Asia, he lives in Bangkok, he's married, he's got children there, he's lived there for 30 years. I was in the Royal Marines with him. We did special forces training together. He basically contacted me and he said, look, I'm in the healthcare business. I'm in Southeast Asia. They've got a huge need here because they literally, in some of the countries where I'm surrounded, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, they don't even know that they've got type 1, and they don't even know what the condition is. And that's where we started. We started actually in the children's Yangon, Yangon's capital of Myanmar, Children's Hospital in Yangon. We started with supplying insulin and test strips to 12 children. And we built it up from there. And now we're in 7 countries. We're supporting over 1,000 children. And we work with clinics within those countries. We educate through our diabetes platform, Hello Type 1. The education is in local language, whether it's Khmer, whether it's Thai, whether it's Malaysian. It's for carers, children, young people with type 1, and for healthcare professionals. So we're educating all 3 groups. And it's our way of helping the people of Southeast Asia deal with type 1 diabetes. So that's and where we got the name from. Well, we brainstormed a lot of different titles. Diabetes had to be in there clearly, and action was because we're hands-on. We're doing something. We're not kind of sitting back and just writing research papers. We're doing all of it. We're doing research papers. We're educating doctors. We're helping young mothers. We're doing diabetes camps for children. I just come back from Cambodia. We had a brilliant one in Siem Reap. And it's all about action and doing stuff about this condition. So I don't know. Does that answer the question?
No, that's really incredible, and I'm looking at the comments that are coming in as well. That's really congratulations on what you do, and you're not just like, hey, I got type 1 diabetes, I'm gonna be stay in my little bubble. You're actually going out there, making a difference to the lives of thousands of people, over a period of years. All of the experiences that you've seen, the adventures that you've been through, and you really turning it into something so positive and so impactful. Really hats off to you, Jerry, for that. So I'm going to jump to the next question. That's I know Harneet is a mum. Her son is, I think he's 23. Harneet, correct me if I'm wrong. And he's been T1 for about 20 plus years. And I see your comment, and you say that you're worried about hypos, largely about about the one part that she's worried about in T1 is about the hypos, and she's a young boy. So what's your advice uh, for her son or for her?
Okay, so it's difficult. No one's going to pretend this condition is easy or safe or yeah, just it's tough. I think acceptance is really important. He's got it. He's not going to get rid of it. You can reverse type 2 diabetes. You can't reverse type 1. There's a lot of technology, a lot of changes, a lot of research, but basically, he's got it. And I don't think it's worth thinking about, well, in the future, he might get a pancreas transplant. Hopefully, there will be, but at the moment, he's got it. And accepting it is really important. And I think once you accept it, then I think you have to start looking around and looking at people and children and young parents who are in the same situation. A problem shared is a problem halved. We all know that. So true. So I definitely encourage you to talk to other young mothers, other children with the same condition. I think that really helps. And this is the bit where what I'm going to say is quite contentious, but I totally believe in it. You have to get into a mindset where you allow your child to play with his diabetes. And before all the hands go up, let me explain what I'm saying. They have to understand what they've got. They mustn't be frightened of it, and they've got to experiment with it. Now, that can be as controlled as you want, but he needs to understand what a hypo is. He needs to understand when you get a hypo. He needs to understand the symptoms of a hypo, and he needs to know what to do when he's got one, because he will have them for the rest of his life. We all have them. I know the best diabetics on the planet. They have A1Cs. If I said A1C 5.5, does that mean anything to you? Does
I mean,
it?
it's a good
Yeah,
A1C, but you
yeah,
still have
yeah, yeah,
hypos, right?
yeah, yeah. But even at 5.5, which is brilliant blood sugar control, you still get hypos, right? So he's going to get hypos. So don't hide them from him. Embrace it and learn about it, and maybe experiment a bit. And you go, well, how do I experiment with a hypo? Well, you go, okay, so he's at, are you in milligrams per deciliter or you're in millimoles?
We're in milligrams per deciliter.
Milligram. Okay, fine. So milligrams. So let's say he's at 90, right? And you know he's had some insulin on board. His blood sugars are starting to go down. Now, you know that he will probably go into a hypo if you take him out for a walk, because he's doing exercise, and that's kind of the graph going down. So take him out for a walk, have plenty of fun, nice, fast acting sugars. The walk doesn't have to be 100 miles. It could be like a kilometer. Go for a walk. And as he starts to maybe feel a bit funny, whatever, stop, test, have something fun to eat, a banana, a donut, whatever, and then test again. And just by doing that, you've experienced the symptoms of a hypo. You've gone a little bit into that low ground, and he's started to feel it in a very safe, controlled way. There's no danger in what I've just said, but you're learning, you're playing with that condition. And that's really important, because you're going to get hypo. He will get hypos. You can't run away from it. So it's like, learn about it and experiment with it, rather than just try not to ever get one, because you will get them. So embrace it. I don't know if that answers the question, but in a nutshell, don't be frightened of hypos. Learn about them, read about them, and get your son to understand as well, and get to a point when you have a hypo, ideally you experience it with him, and you can support him and hold him and comfort him. But he's having one, and you're dealing with it, and it's not a big one. It's not a really bad one. It's light, and you come through it and you move on. That's a positive experience. That's
Correct.
what you want.
That's very helpful, Jerry. Harneet, I hope that you find it helpful, and feel free to share your comments. I see Rohan's comment, and Rohan has been T1 for about 15 years, I think now, and he says that listening to Jerry today, I've got at least 50 quotes or 50 thoughts to take away from this session. today. So, and I agree with you there, Rohan. I also see Lucy is joining us from Spain. Hi, Lucy. Good to see you. I know Lucy's been T1 for about over 35 years or 39 years, if I'm not wrong. So, a lot of our T1 friends here and T2 friends as well. So, talking of hypos, okay, another comment about experimenting, and you spoke about controlled experimenting and trial and errors. So the experiment gives you the best of both worlds, right? You get to experience a hypo in a safe, controlled environment, and there's also learning because there's no running away from a hypo. You will have it. If you are on
Mm.
insulin, you are gonna have hypos. So talking of hypos, Jerry, how do you manage? Because like what you're doing, sometimes is crazy. And I mean, I was reading some of your experiences. You've had some real like life, some very challenging situations you've been in before T1, after T1. So how do you manage your hypos and hypers when you're like on top of a mountain or something?
So the answer to that question is uh, I always have fast acting sugar, and I try to keep my hyper awareness as strong as it can. So I think the best defense you've got is awareness. And I know that awareness can and does uh, um, reduce the longer you have this condition. But I try and maintain my hyper awareness so I feel my blood sugar, and I'll often test myself to test my awareness. So, for instance, my glucose. I've set my glucometer. By the way, it's a quick life hack. But if you have a CGM, so that's a continuous glucose monitoring device, like say the Freestyle Libra, you set the alarm on it so it goes off at 90, not at 70. Now you're all taught 70 is when you have a hypo. Well, actually, you can start feeling that hypo at 90. So I set my alarm and I test myself when I get to 90. I know I'm going into a hypo, and I confirm it because I felt it and I've had it backed up with my BGM, my glucometer,
Right.
to actually know that I'm going low. Um, so as I'm going low, I'm feeling it, and I take some fast acting carbs. Fast acting carbs for me come in the form of one thing that totally has changed my life as a type 1, and this allows me to do all my cycling record breaking challenges, UK challenges, speed records on big mountains, all the stuff I've done. And it's a really simple thing, and that's why I love it. And do you know what it is?
What is it?
It's a cereal bar. So do you know what
Oh,
a cereal bar is? So this is like it's like oats, it's like nuts, it's raisins, and it's all kind of squashed together, and to make it into a little bar like this. I should have one, but I haven't got it with me. And it's you can buy 6 for like $half. I mean, they're cheap, right? But
right.
they're made with natural ingredients, and honey is in there. Cereal
Mhm.
bars for me are brilliant because cereal bars will get my sugars up, not huge, not skyrocketing hard, not like eating. Do you have a Mars bar in India? Do you know what Mars
Right.
bars are? Mars
Yes, yes.
bars are rubbish. Mars bars are rubbish because they're empty calories. They're just sugar, right? You don't want
Right.
empty. You want complex carbs. A cereal bar with nuts and oats and raisins. Let your sugars come up. The honey increases up. They come up, but they stay up. A Mars bar, if you just had white sugar, will just bring you up and then drop you flat. So when I feel I'm going into a hypo, I have a cereal bar, sometimes 2 if I'm doing a lot of endurance, extreme stuff, and that will keep me up. Um, the other thing that I do, and it's so obvious, but it's all about the quantity of insulin. You get hypos because you've injected too much insulin. It's as simple as that, right? So don't inject too much insulin.
Correct.
So if I'm going on, say, a 24-hour endurance cycle or a big climb, I will drop my basal by 75%, and I'll drop my bolus insulin by at least 75%. So,
Got it.
now I've got a very little amount of long-term insulin on board, and I've got a
Mhm.
very little amount of short-term. I might still spike, but I'm much more concerned about going hypo if I'm doing, say, a 24-hour climb challenge than I
Right.
am by going too high. And that's another part of my system. I'm more worried about going hypo because it'll affect my performance than going
Right.
too high. And when I'm doing a cycle challenge or something, I'll run artificially a little bit high. Let's say you're going for I don't know, a 5 kilometer run. Your blood sugars will probably be up to 200, maybe 250. But it's
Mhm.
better to do that and then bring them down again than trying to keep them at between 70 and 100 milligrams, which is perfect, and risk going hypo. And of course, the longer the expedition, if I'm going for 6 weeks in the Himalaya or 2 months or cycling across Europe to Ukraine, which I've just done, 26 days of non-stop cycling,
Wow.
I'm really reducing my insulin because I've become incredibly insulin sensitive.
Right. Right. That
And
makes sense.
and so so I'm doing all those things. I'm having fast acting carbs next to me. I'm testing regularly. I'm feeling how I'm doing. I still get it wrong. Plenty of times I get it wrong.
Yeah.
But I get it far less wrong than I get right, and that's always a win. And the other thing that I do is, of course, I train my partners. They are hypo aware. And that's another backup that's kind of free of charge. This guy is right next to you. It could be a woman, a man, a young person, whatever. But they're aware of you as well. And they're how, oh, Jerry, you stop talking. As you probably imagine, I talk quite a lot. And they go, Jerry, you haven't said anything. Are you okay? And I might be going, and then they know, yeah, I'm in hypo. Right. Stop, test, according to the test results, eat. Almost invariably, if I'm not talking, I'm in hypo, so I need to eat. And those are some of the things that I do.
Right. That's so sweet, and that's why it's so important to tell the people around you that you have type 1 diabetes. And this is a conversation that comes up every now and then on our groups about, how people feel like, maybe should I or should I not tell people at work? Should I not tell people at school? Or should I not, tell people when I'm out running? You should, because any small change, that they notice, and they will, because they're spending so much time with you. Then they're going to help you. And
Mm,
in case of an emergency, that's really the help that you may need. I mean, God forbid you never need that help, and you're
mm,
going to sail through. Uh, but that's really good to know, Jerry. I'm seeing a bunch of comments. So Rohan has a question, and also quick, this thing for our viewers. If you have any questions, please put them into the comment box, and I'll ask Jerry. I am also cognizant that we've got about 10 minutes left. So this is the time to send in your questions, comments, whatever you have.
mm.
I can see a bunch of comments. Lucy says she's been type 1 for 31 years. Yep. And Rohan says a lot of the times we want to stay in our comfort zone, and we don't experiment, or we don't try, and that's something that holds us back. He has a question for you. He says, how do you change your basal each time you plan, like some intense exercise, and what basal are you on?
So the answer to that question is I change my basal almost every day.
Got it.
So every day I'm doing something different. And so every
Mhm.
day I'm adapting my diabetes. I might be sat in the front of a computer all day. Then the next day I run up a mountain. Then the day after that I'm traveling. As you know, in the last 2 weeks, I've moved from Cambodia to the Philippines to Thailand to England. And now I'm in the southern French Alps and I'll be here for Christmas. But I move a lot and travel a lot, and
Right.
I adapt my basal and my bolus as a result. My basic is 12 units of Levemir in the morning and 12 units at night. I split my basal dose because I find it works better for me. I don't
Yeah.
find it has a 24-hour profile. It has more like a 12 to 15-hour profile. So I split
Right.
it. I have in the morning, I have in the afternoon. Again, I learned that from doing an expedition in Patagonia many years ago. My bolus, I use a Humalog and I inject multiple times a day. So if I want a snack and a coffee, I want a biscuit and a coffee, then I'll have the biscuit or the cookie or whatever, and I'll inject 1 or 2 units. And then depending what I'm eating for the next meal, I'll inject accordingly. But every day I'm eating different stuff. On the 26th of August, I cycled from London, and I arrived in Kiev in Ukraine 26 days later. So
Wow.
that's 3,200 kilometers of cycling, unsupported, no back. We carried everything with us.
Yeah.
But every day, every meal, every snack was different. And so you have to get good at guesstimating the number of carbs and then
Right.
injecting accordingly. And again, you can't do that if you live in this kind of rigid bubble where you eat the same thing at the same time every day.
Yeah.
I don't know many people who can live like that and on top of that, it's pretty restricting, right? And it's pretty bloody boring. So I learned to adapt, and what I tend to do is I'll inject probably, if anything, slightly too few units of fast
Right.
acting, and as I go up, I'll test and then I'll inject more. But I could become incredibly insulin sensitive. During the ride, I'm eating 4,000 calories of food a day, donuts and cream and McDonald's and rice and everything to get and I still lost 5 kilograms in weight. And I
Yeah.
was injecting 1 unit or two max after a big carb rich meal. Um, and I noticed that when I stopped. I was having I was working with the International Diabetes Federation, and we were meeting various diabetics along the group. And there was a group there one day, two lovely girls. One was like 22, the other one was like 28.
Wow.
Um, and we sat down and we had a chat about diabetes, and we had a meal of rice, and it was like a sweet and sour sauce. Anyway, we had the same meal.
Right.
I injected 2 units. The
Hmm.
21 injected 11 units, and the 28-year-old injected 17 units. None of us
Oh,
went hypo, but there's a
yeah.
massive difference. And that's when we get onto this. Every type 1 is different. So you have to become your own doctor because there's no one like you. You have to learn about you. And that little experience over lunch really brought it home to me. You go from 2 to 11 to 17. I mean, what a difference. And yet we're eating the same food, right?
Correct, correct. That's very true. You have to do what works for you. And I see Lucy's comment. She says it takes a lot of diabetes education and the will to learn and thrive with T1, and that's really,
And
that
and,
sums it
and
up.
yeah, it's so true. And what's behind that comment is motivation. Because if you're not motivated, you're not going to do all that work. That's
Yeah.
why kids have to have fun with this condition, and that's why you have to inspire them to want to test and to maintain good blood sugars. Otherwise, they'll go, do you know what? I'm not bothered, because they won't visualize losing a hand or a foot to diabetes. They won't know about retinal hemorrhage or going blind. They just know about kicking a ball or keeping up with their friends or keeping their hair flat. My daughters always tried to keep their hair flat. I never got it myself, but that's what they're interested in, right?
Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
looks and their personality and their music and their clothes. They're not interested in their blood sugar. So you've got to
True.
help them become interested in it and realize that it's important, but it's not a burden. It's actually, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, it's just fun. It's interesting, and a lot of people ask us, can we get a tattoo if we're T1, and can we color our hair blue or whatever? And it's good that they're asking, because eventually everything ties down to how you manage your health and your well-being. So Jerry, you were saying that you were in Southeast Asia a few days ago, and I can only imagine it must be well, if not hot, at least warm there. And now you're in the French Alps. You told me yesterday it's -8. So with all of those temperature changes and the type of food that's available in different parts of the world and all of your crazy schedules, how do you manage? How do you balance, the food, the temperature, the timing of things, because time zones are different. How do you sort of get a hold on all of these things?
So the first thing I do, the quick hack, if you like, is low carbs, high fat, high proteins. So food, you can talk about food for the rest of your life, but it's simply
Yeah,
three things: carbs, proteins, and fats. Of course, there's minerals and different stuff in there, but basically it's those threes. What can a type 1 eat a lot of?
yeah,
Protein. So tons of either cheese or meat or whatever. Lots of veg, because basically there's no carbs.
yeah,
Fats, I personally don't have a problem with fat. I'm doing 1 to 2 hours of exercise every day, and my body fat percentage is about 7%. I'm highly muscled, and that's my body shape. So to me, I eat a lot of fat, but then
yeah,
I eat a lot of good fats and saturated fats, and unsaturated fats, and so I don't have a problem. So I eat a lot of fats as well, and I actually get energy from fats. But what I don't eat a lot of is carbs. So let's
yeah.
say there's a plate of. I'm trying to think India, and I'm trying to think. Um, I'm trying to
Rice.
think what the English thing was. But of course, the first thing you do in India, like all the south countries in Southeast Asia, you'll eat rice at least once, if not three times a day. Is that right? Yeah.
Right,
So
right, right.
so
Bread.
so yeah, and so I try and reduce when I'm in Cambodia or Philippines, or if I'm in Laos or Cambodia or Vietnam, I'll try and eat small amount of rice, some rice, but a small amount.
Right.
Lots of vegetables, lots of meat, and then I don't feel very hungry in hot countries, and of course for me it's always hot
Yeah.
in those sort of countries. So I reduce the carbs. Um, I um, I generally reduce my bolus because uh, I I'm not eating very sweet stuff, and I'm not eating many carbs. But then I'll test within an hour after I eat, and if my blood sugars are going up, then I'll probably put in 1 or 2 more units, and then I'll test again 2 hours after, and that's how I do it. I'm not saying, okay, I've calculated the carbs, it's 5 units, it's 30 grams of carbs, I inject that and then forget about it. I find it doesn't work for me. I have to monitor it quite often and
Yeah.
quite regularly. But the base is very low amount of carbs, so my sugars don't spike up. I do like a coffee and a cake about 11 o'clock, and that's difficult because the cake can be any different amount, any sort of amount of sugar. But again, I'll
Right.
inject for that. And then the other thing I'll do, if I can, I'll build it into my schedule. I'll put in 30 minutes of exercise as soon after a meal as I can. So let's say I have a big lunch and it's a conference and I've got to eat with everybody else and the food's amazing. I'll go,
Yeah.
okay, I need 30 minutes of exercise after that conference. I do the conference, I then go for a walk, and I'll keep walking. And normally that works as well. And people will go, oh, that's really extreme, and I can't just take 30 minutes from work and go walking. And I get that. But
Yeah.
then I'd encourage them to do something else to help them reduce the sugar spikes. But
Yes.
I find
Yes.
often a little walk is good as well, because you're helping digest the food, and it
Correct.
takes you away from that intense environment. But you have to work out your own ways of dealing with it. Yeah.
You do absolutely. And if you can't make the time for your own health, I mean, what comes first is your own well-being, and you can't pour from an empty cup. So you can't help anyone else unless you're well and you're in good shape. So and a
Yeah.
lot of us here, I know, also do low carb. So it's wonderful to hear that, Jerry. And I know Lucy, Rohan, me, a lot of us do low carb, and it really is a solid way to manage your blood sugars. So we're sort of at the end of our session now. Last question or two. So something I've been wanting to ask you for a while. I mean, you seem like the kind of person that's go go go, just go out there, do it, nothing stopping you. But have you ever faced any sort of discrimination or stigma, or do you feel like a patient? What's your sort of thought on that?
I gotta say, I did once when I it was the end of a Southeast Asian trip. It was the early days of Action for Diabetes. We just raised a lot of money at a big fundraising dinner, and I do like a bit of dancing and a bit of karaoke. So we basically, Charlie took me out to a couple of clubs in Bangkok, and I must have danced and sung from about 1 o'clock in the morning through until about 4 o'clock. He then took me back to his, because he lives just on the outskirts of Bangkok. We had a shower, we got changed, I packed all my stuff up, and then he drove me to the airport. It's about an hour and a half drive from his house, and at 6:30. I left his car, said goodbye, walked into the international airport in Thailand, in Bangkok, and walked straight into a massive hypo and collapsed. So now
Oh
I'm on
God.
the floor, I'm out of it, my kit's everywhere, and and I didn't, I literally woke up in the hospital in the airport. What I'd been doing was I'd been dancing all night, and I'd been
Right.
topping my sugars up with Coca-Cola, which again is rubbish because it's empty calories, didn't have any cereal bars. And it was a big mistake. I learned from it. I'm not proud of it, but it happened. And I must admit, when I got to that hospital in the airport, and I missed my flight, I had to buy a new flight, and I hadn't lost anything. I mean, the people, they're very honest. Nothing was stolen. I had it all back, but I was about 6 hours behind schedule, so I had to buy a new ticket, and that was expensive, and all the rest of it. But I remember lying on that bed thinking, yeah, I'm a patient. I really screwed that up. I'm really stupid, and I needed to do better. But I learned from that, and I'm not proud of that story. I don't tell it to many people, but it happened. And lying about this condition is just not the way to go. You've got to be open about it. Everybody makes mistakes, and it's how we react and deal with those mistakes is what's important. And I tell you what, I'm never going to dance for 6 hours all night and just drink Coca-Cola again.
Yeah, I mean that's an incredible, learning opportunity, and you made the best of it. I mean, things happen, life happens, and
Yeah.
I think my last question to you, Jerry, was going to be, what's your sort of takeaway for the people that are watching in terms of the mental makeup, the mental resilience? I mean, you're doing what you're doing, and it's not just physical, right? I mean, climbing mountains, riding cycles for like a whole month, doing all of these things is not only physical. It takes a huge amount of mental resilience. And when you were narrating the story about the airport and the dancing, that's really what that came through to me as well. I mean, something happened, but you
Yeah.
did the best you could. So to wrap up, I mean, what's that one sort of takeaway with respect to mental resilience that you'd like to share?
I would say you get resilience from doing different stuff. And what I've always done is I put my hand up. I've always volunteered, and I think it's something that young mothers can encourage their children to do that.
Right.
Get out of your comfort zone, put your hand up, volunteer, whether it's you want to play your trumpet, or whether you want to play football, or whether you want to star in a show at school, or whatever. Get out
Yeah.
of your comfort zone, develop your resilience, and become a tougher, more resourceful person. And by always volunteering and trying and testing and doing different stuff, that builds, for me, it's always built up resilience. So I've put myself in a lot of different extreme, challenging environments, and I've learned from those, and I've become a stronger, more resilient person as a result.
Yeah. That's great advice. And I see Rohan's comment. He says that everyone makes mistakes, and it's really how you react to that that makes the difference. You could cry about it. You could say, "Oh my God, my life's over now," but you need to get up and keep going. That's what Jerry's been talking
I
about from the get go.
I think for me this is sums up diabetes, and it's a quote from Sir Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister in Britain in the Second World War, and I think
Yeah,
it's just spot on for life, but also for dealing with diabetes. And is his quote about success, and he said, "Success is the ability to go from failure to failure with enough enthusiasm to carry on." So what's he
love that.
saying? He's saying life, we all fail, right? We all fail all the time, but we
Yeah,
have to be motivated enough and have enough energy to go, do you know what? I'm going to go to the next one and the next one. And you never give up. You keep going. Diabetes will constantly throw problems and issues and obstacles at you. And you just go, okay, it's another obstacle. I've got to overcome it. And I will. And I keep going. And I think that quote from Winston Churchill to me sums up life. Well, I think it sums up what success is. It really is going from failure to failure with energy to carry on. But it's also that's what diabetes is like, because as a diabetic we fail all the time. We fail to achieve perfect blood sugars, but we mustn't give up. We must just keep going, accept it. It's part of life, and actually it can be really fun and interesting, and you learn so much more. And here I am talking to you guys. Without type 1 I'd never be talking to you.
absolutely. And we're so grateful, that you made the time on a Sunday, on a weekend. And, we wish you all the success, Jerry. And thanks for making the time and talking to all of us today. I know I, for one, am super. I mean, you've inspired me to, get out and get going and go and clock those steps for the day. I haven't walked today, so that's what I'm going to go do after this. But thanks once again, and it's been so much fun talking to you. And I hope that this has been just as helpful for all of our viewers. So thank you, and over to you.
And thanks for this opportunity. And you can always contact me through Action for Diabetes or my website or Facebook. If you have got questions and if I can help, give me a shout.
Sure. Thanks, Jerry. Have a great rest of the Sunday, and same to everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye.